These are the most insane 1v1 confrontations ever recorded in human history. Number 1. Rodrigo de Vivar versus Garci Ordóñez. The 11th century on the Iberian Peninsula, war was simply the air people breathed daily. Rodrigo was a Castilian knight, famous for one simple reason: he never lost. He fought like a machine, cold, calculated, and extraordinarily dangerous in every battle. Garci Ordóñez was the opposite: wealthy, politically connected, and favored by the king. Both men served the same royal court, but had never genuinely liked each other. Everything exploded when Rodrigo was accused of stealing tax money from the crown. The man behind that accusation was Garci, a nobleman determined to destroy him completely. Rodrigo was exiled by the king without ever getting a chance to defend himself. He lost everything: his status, his wealth, and his honor in a single night. Instead of collapsing, Rodrigo went out and built his own army from scratch. He became a mercenary, fighting for both Christian kings and Muslim rulers equally. His reputation grew so massive that Arab warriors began calling him El Cid, the Master. Years passed, and the King of Castile eventually needed Rodrigo back desperately. Garci Ordóñez, by this point, had risen to become the kingdom's highest-ranking general. The two men met again on the battlefield, and not as allies this time around. Before the armies clashed, Rodrigo sent a letter proposing they settle it man to man. Garci accepted immediately. He was younger, stronger, and believed his training was superior. On the day of the duel, Rodrigo arrived wearing old, worn armor, carrying a standard sword. Garci showed up in gleaming new plate armor, looking like an actual god of war. Both armies stood apart, watching from a distance as the two men faced each other. Garci attacked first, powerful, relentless, and giving his opponent absolutely no room to breathe. Rodrigo kept retreating backward, which made his own soldiers start whispering nervously among themselves. But it was a trap. Rodrigo was carefully studying every single movement Garci made. He noticed that Garci always dropped his right shield slightly after delivering a heavy strike. Waiting for exactly that moment, Rodrigo lunged forward and drove his blade into Garci's shoulder. Garci dropped to the ground, his sword fell away, and he could not continue fighting. Rodrigo pressed his blade against Garci's throat and demanded a confession about the false accusation. Garci refused. He would rather die than lose face in front of both armies. Rodrigo stared directly into his enemy's eyes and then slowly slid his sword back into its sheath. He said, "A man who cannot admit his wrongs suffers a worse fate than death itself." He turned and walked away, and that was the moment Garci was truly and completely defeated. Not because of the wound in his shoulder, but because both armies had witnessed the truth. Number 2. Miyamoto Musashi versus Tsujikaze Tenma. Few people know that before his legendary duel with Kojiro, there was another, far darker fight. In 1604, Musashi was only 21 years old and had just begun his journey challenging warriors everywhere. Tsujikaze Tenma was the leader of a ruthless gang of rogue samurai controlling the Kyoto region. He wasn't famous for skill, he was infamous for cruelty and having absolutely no moral limits. Tenma had killed one of Musashi's young students simply because the boy stared at him too long. Musashi heard the news and walked straight into Tenma's stronghold, completely alone. No witnesses, no rules, no samurai honor code applied inside those walls whatsoever. Tenma had 30 disciples surrounding him. He had no intention of fighting one-on-one. Musashi walked calmly into the middle of the crowd and placed his sword on the ground. He looked directly at Tenma and said, "You killed my student, so face me, just the two of us." Tenma laughed and asked why he should follow the rules of someone in a weaker position. Musashi nodded slowly and picked his sword back up, then did something nobody anticipated at all. He charged straight at the disciples first, not Tenma, and knocked 3 of them down instantly. Tenma stood frozen, watching, because he genuinely could not understand why his opponent did that. Musashi turned back toward Tenma and said, "Now do you understand that I am completely serious?" Tenma drew his sword. This time there was no more laughing or posturing happening at all. He attacked using the Neaton technique, dual rhythm strikes that were devastatingly difficult to counter. Musashi kept dodging without counterattacking. He was reading the pattern of Tenma's breathing carefully. After 15 attack sequences, Musashi noticed Tenma was gasping noticeably after every 8th strike. He waited patiently for the next 8th strike, then countered exactly when Tenma's lungs were empty. A single blow to the chest. Tenma collapsed backward and could not get back up at all. Musashi walked out of the stronghold without saying another single word to anyone remaining there. The lesson he left behind wasn't about sword technique. It was about reading your enemy deeper. Number 3. Wild Bill Hickok versus Davis Tutt. America in 1865. The Civil War had just ended, and the entire West was total chaos. James Butler Hickok, known everywhere as Wild Bill, was a celebrated gunfighter and gambler. Davis Tutt was also a gambler, but he played dirty, and nobody ever dared say it openly. The two had once been friends, but everything changed the moment a woman entered the picture. Hickok was seeing a young woman. Tutt wanted her too, and was quietly scheming against him. One evening at a gambling hall in Springfield, Missouri, the two men sat at the same table. Hickok kept winning while Tutt lost everything he had in under 2 hours completely. Tutt then claimed Hickok owed him money from an older game. Hickok said the amount was far less. Neither man backed down, so Tutt stood up and grabbed Hickok's gold pocket watch as collateral. Hickok said coldly, "Don't wear that watch in public tomorrow unless you want to die today." Tutt not only wore it, he paraded it around the main town square for everyone to see. The next morning, the entire town of Springfield came out to watch what would happen next. The two men stood facing each other across 75 meters, far beyond the normal dueling distance. Tutt drew first and fired. The bullet passed just inches from Hickok's left side. Hickok didn't panic. He turned his body sideways to make himself a much smaller target. He rested his pistol on his left forearm as a brace and began aiming with total calm. A single shot rang out. The bullet went straight through Tutt's heart before he could fire again. Tutt fell dead instantly in the middle of the square in front of hundreds of witnesses watching. Hickok was arrested, but the court acquitted him completely, ruling it a clear case of self-defense. The most remarkable detail wasn't his draw speed. It was his absolute, unshakable calm under fire. 75 meters with a revolver from that era was a distance considered nearly impossible to hit accurately. Hickok hit the heart, and he only needed exactly one single shot to do it.